In today's episode, Dr. Plotkin explores one of the most iconic plants of the gods, palms. From the highly nourishing coconut and acai palms to the towering Andean wax palm, Dr. Plotkin will discuss the many roles of these princes of the plant kingdom.
In a series devoted to plants of the gods and mind-altering substances, it may seem a bit odd to have an episode on palm trees, but palms are truly plants of the gods in that they are worshipped by many, if not most, of the world's religions, large and small. In today's episode, we'll explore these emblematic plants of the tropical rainforest. From their many practical uses to their important role in the religions of the world, we'll learn why palms are called the princes of the plant kingdom. And we'll touch on the life of Alfred Russel Wallace, the greatest field biologist of all time. Now, palms have been called the princes of the plant kingdom by Carl Linnaeus, the father of scientific classifications. A coconut palm on a sandy beach represents the single most emblematic symbol of a tropical paradise. Festoon a stand of trees with lianas and palms, and many would deem it a tropical rainforest. In the words of Harvard ethnobotanist Richard Schultes, quote, "A panorama does not seem to be tropical unless palms occupy a distinct and conspicuously visible part of the flora." There can be no doubt, however, that the palms occupy a position of primacy in terms of economic plants. They represent one of the most useful families of plants in the rainforest and in the desert as well. In addition to nutrition, however, what do we rely on palms for precisely? One of the 12 plants basic to human nutrition is a palm, the well-known coconut palm. In the Malay language, it is known as pokok seribu guna, the, quote, tree of 1,000 uses. The coconut is best known for its edible fruits, but actually hundreds of species of palms, in fact, produce edible fruit. Many yield nutritious oils as well. Several yield starch and even sugar. The betel palm of tropical Asia is a strong stimulant used by millions of people each day, and an alkaloid in the fruit is employed by veterinarians to kill intestinal worms. Valuable varnishes, like the so-called dragon's blood, as well as gums, are derived from palms. Strong fibers are among the most outstanding useful products of the palm family. Fats and oils for the soap and cosmetic industry are derived from many species, and palms yield hard waxes as well, like the famous carnaúba wax from northeastern Brazil. 3 genera are in fact the source of vegetable ivory, from which buttons and similar objects are fashioned. These are palm seeds, which when carved cannot be distinguished from elephant ivory by most people. In fact, one genera of these palms bears the scientific name Phytelaphus, which means plant elephant ivory. Palms supply a diversity of other economic products, such as thatch, mats, and rattans, musical instruments, folk medicines, poisons, and even alcoholic beverages. Even though it has not been so conspicuous and easily recognized, the role of palms in religion, hence their being considered to be plants of the gods, may perhaps be even more fascinating to ponder than the many practical uses in daily life to which the palms contribute. So let's talk about palms and religion. We know the practical reasons palms are so important, but why are they worshipped? Due to their graceful appearance and bountiful yields, palm trees have been worshipped almost everywhere they occur. The significance of these princes of the plant kingdom is found not only in the so-called great religions of the world, but even more where it enters into indigenous religious societies in the rainforest and elsewhere. Palms are important in Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism, and many other religions. We need only to recall the role of the date palm in the Near East to understand the importance to the religions that originate there. Palms represented long life in ancient Egypt and were carried by the Egyptians in funeral processions to represent eternal life. The ancient Greeks dedicated palms to Apollo, the god of manly beauty, youth, poetry, music, and wisdom, and the ancient Romans considered palms to be symbols of victory. Among us Jews, palms epitomize grace and elegance and have long been a symbol of Jerusalem, the religious center of the Jewish religion. The use of date palm leaves, the lulav, in processions dates back at least to the restoration of the temple by Judah Maccabee in 164 BC, and the custom is still celebrated at Sukkot, the Feast of the Tabernacles. Among Christians, palms are emblematic of Jesus' entry into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday. In commemoration of this occasion, palm branches are given to congregants in churches around the world on Palm Sunday. Palms were sacred to the ancient Arabs, revered by peoples in Asia Minor since antiquity, and later became the actual symbol of Islam. The writings of the classical period of Islam compared the date palm to the sun. In Islamic tradition, Muhammad himself created the palm tree, commanding it to spring forth from the desert sand. Unlike most trees in the rainforest, almost all palms can be recognized as such on sight. Their aesthetic appeal is undeniable, but their extraordinary utility is almost always underestimated by people outside the forest itself. Associated primarily with the tropical lowlands, palms thrive elsewhere as well. The Andean wax palm, reaching more than 200 feet in height, is the tallest member of the palm family, and much remarked upon by the great Alexander von Humboldt, the most famous of the early explorers of South America. It thrives at over 10,000 feet above sea level. In the scorching and almost barren deserts of the Middle East, palms are truly the tree of life. Desert dwellers in ancient Egypt were devouring dome palms, that is, dome palms, not date palms, over 18,000 years ago. The transplanted Chinese window palms reach as far north as the shores of Scotland and the foothills of the Southern Alps, where they adorn the shores of Lake Como. Surely palms are not restricted just to the equatorial rainforest. But let's talk about these rainforest palms. It is in the tropics that palms reach their greatest abundance, fecundity, and variety. Of the 200 genera found worldwide, about a third of those are native to the Americas. Of the 67 genera of palms in the New World, 34 genera, comprising about 150 species, are found in the Amazon. Ironically, some consider the diversity of palms in Amazonia depauperate, that is, very low. In other words, lacking in diversity. Tiny Costa Rica, substantially less than 1% the size of the Amazon rainforest, harbors 109 species of palms. Ecuador, the size of 4% of the Amazon, has 120 species, while only 150 species are known from the Amazon itself. I can speak from personal experience when I say that palms are notoriously difficult to study and collect. Botanists gather palm species in the wild by folding leaves and then drying them in a plant press, the dimensions of which are typically a mere 12 by 18 inches. However, palms produce some of the largest leaves in the world. In Amazonia, the leaf of the buriti palm reaches a length that exceeds 10 feet, whereas the African raffia palm leaf exceeds more than 80 feet. But what Amazonian palms lack in diversity, they make up for in abundance. Some of the pure stands of buriti and the more famous acai palm extend for dozens of miles. An extraordinary recent study of the South American rainforest determined the 20 most common tree species in the Amazon, and 7 of these most common species were in fact palms. Ethnobotanists and food historians have long noted that the 3 plant families that are fundamental to the well-being of our species are the Gramineae, that is the grass family, corn, rice, and wheat being obvious examples. Number 2 is the legume family, plants like beans, peas, and soybeans. And finally, the Araceae, the palms themselves. Grasses and legumes play a relatively small and limited role in the lives of rainforest denizens, meaning that the importance of palms is even greater to the human species in these equatorial regions. First and foremost, palms provide foodstuffs in prodigious quantities. A single branch harvested from one palm can yield over 1,000 fruits. In fact, only manioc, that is cassava, is more important as a food source in certain parts of Amazonia, and palms provide dietary components like minerals, oils, proteins, and vitamins that manioc lacks. And not only are palms dietary staples of indigenous and peasant forest dwellers, but they're also sold in local markets, national markets, and even international markets, as is the case with the now seemingly ubiquitous acai juice. The nutritional importance of palms extends far beyond their edibility. Amazonian people also consume palm hearts, so-called palmitos or palm hearts, which are a cylindrical bunch of leaf bases that serve as the growing tip. They are also now widely available in markets here in the U.S. With high-quality oils from palm fruit, forest peoples concoct bread from the starch or the stem and prepare 3 different types of wine, one from the fruit, one from the trunk, and another from the unopened flowers. Palm fruit serve as dietary staples for Amazonian birds, particularly macaw parrots, fish, so much so that palm fruits are employed on bait hooks by peasant fishermen in Amazonia, and even mammals like the manatee rely heavily on palm fruits. In fact, 2 of the most important game animals in the Amazon forest, the ubiquitous pig-like collared peccary and the fearsome white-lipped peccary, feed on 27 and 37 species of palm fruits, respectively. The second most important utility of palms in the Amazon rainforest is as shelter, whether temporary lean-tos to wait out a sudden rainstorm, overnight camps on a hunting foray, or titanic longhouses, the so-called maloca, which are built to last more than a decade. Almost all forest dwellings in Amazonia, built solely of local materials, contain palms, and many consist of mostly palms, and some consist of only palms. I've had the honor and privilege to spend time with the Yukuna peoples who live in the most remote regions of the northwest Amazon. Their extraordinary longhouses can reach almost 3 stories in height and are exceptionally watertight, and these stunning structures are built almost entirely of palms. Widespread reliance on these palm leaves for thatch is based on their internal strength, their durability, and their flexibility due to the presence of so-called vascular bundles, silica bodies, and fibers that make them both strong and pliable. Studies of the coconut palm leaves have found that the tensile strength of the leaf midrib is comparable to that of annealed aluminum, and palm thatch in tropical Asia is known to have endured for more than 50 years. Despite the advent of corrugated tin roofs in most corners of the lowland tropics, palm thatch roofs are still widely employed because they do not require a financial outlay. They are far cooler under the equatorial sun than metal roofs and far quieter during the ubiquitous equatorial rainstorms. They allow cooking smoke to escape, thus enhancing air quality, and they are lighter in weight, meaning they require a lighter frame structure for support.
To purchase Dr. Mark Plotkin's new book, The Amazon, What Everyone Needs to Know, or his first book, Tales of a Shaman's Apprentice, visit your local bookseller or order from Amazon.com.
So what do we know about the use of palms in traditional societies? For answers, we look to Alfred Russel Wallace and his work. The most famous student of these palms was Wallace, who was the co-creator of the theory of evolution. Let me tell you a bit more about this fascinating character. Shortly after breakfast on August 6, 1852, Captain John Turner of the brig Helen, which was then in the middle of the Atlantic after departing from Belém, Brazil, and heading for London, descended to the cabin of one of his passengers and issued a rather understated invitation. Quote, "I'm afraid the ship's on fire. Come and see what you think." The passenger was Alfred Russel Wallace, who I consider to be the greatest field biologist of all time. When the fire broke out, however, Wallace was unemployed and a relatively unknown bird and bug collector, sailing back to his native England with an enormous collection of specimens he'd gathered during a 4-year stay in the Amazon rainforest and which he hoped to sell upon his return home. Wallace had set sail for the Amazon 4 years earlier with his friend Henry Walter Bates. Both were woefully unprepared. Neither spoke Portuguese nor Spanish, nor had either spent any appreciable time outside England. Further, unlike Charles Darwin, who had graduated from Cambridge University and studied in the medical school at Edinburgh, Scotland, prior to his famous voyage in the Beagle, neither Wallace nor Bates had received any advanced education. Wallace had some training in surveying, while Bates was employed in the family hosiery business. Wallace and Bates traveled and collected together in Brazil, then went their separate ways after several months. Bates stayed on when Wallace departed, and he and his collection survived and made it to England intact 7 years after the sinking of Wallace's ship, the Helen. Wallace had collected thousands of specimens, birds, insects, palms, mammals, many of which had never been seen by the outside world, and most of which perished with the ship. He not only visited much of the Brazilian Amazon, but also ventured far enough north to enter Venezuela and far enough west to reach the Colombian border. He traveled far beyond where any European had reached, studying Indians and their languages and customs, pre-Columbian rock art, geography, geology, flora, and fauna. In addition to the sinking of a ship, he survived encounters with poisonous snakes, a gunshot wound, persistent hunger, torrential rains, stifling humidity, a major impediment to drying and storing scientific specimens, poverty, insect bites, 50 wasp stings in one instance, near mishaps with man-eating black caimans, and repeated and crippling bouts of malaria. Wallace lived through not only the fire aboard the Helen, but also 2 near shipwrecks on his way back to England. Such torments probably would have led the average obsessive naturalist to forever swear off tropical travails and especially travel by ship. Yet after publishing several important papers and 2 books about his work in the Amazon, written mostly from memory during just 18 months in England, Wallace set sail for the distant and little-known Malay archipelago in Southeast Asia. There he spent 8 years and changed the world. Lying in a hammock in the Maluku Islands, in the depths of yet another malarial fever, he had an extraordinary insight. That as species struggle for existence, the fittest survive, a process that would become known as natural selection. He scribbled his thoughts in a letter to Charles Darwin, who had been developing the same concept, and their papers were published together in 1858 in what is considered the founding document of the science of evolutionary biology. Note that when Wallace's ship caught fire in the middle of the Atlantic and he was forced to abandon almost all of his belongings and specimens, his sketches were one of the few items he chose to save, and they later served as the basis for his classic book, Palm Trees of the Amazon and Their Uses. Wallace's account of the utility of these palms in the Amazon has become so famous that it is, in fact, the most cited account of palm use among indigenous peoples anywhere in the world. I'm going to read it to you because it is so evocative. Suppose we visited an Indian cottage on the banks of the Rio Negro in Brazil. The main supports of the building are made of trunks of some of the largest and heaviest and durable trees, but the light rafters are overhead and are formed by the straight, cylindrical, and uniform stems of the jaura palm. The roof is thatched with large triangular leaves, neatly arranged in regular alternate rows and bound to the rafters with sipo, or forest creepers, lianas, the leaves of those of the carana palm. The door of the house is a framework of hard strips of wood neatly thatched over. It is made of the split stems of the pashiuba palm. In one corner stands a heavy harpoon for catching the cowfish, the manatee. It is formed of the black wood of the Pashiuma bariguda palm. By its side is a blowpipe or blowgun, 10 or 12 feet long, and a little quiver full of small poison arrows hung up near it. It is from the stems and spines of 2 other species of palms that they are made. The Indian's great bassoon-like musical instruments are made of palm stems. The cloth in which he wraps his most valuable feather ornaments is a fibrous palm leaf known as a palm spade. And the rude chest in which he keeps his treasures is woven from palm leaves. His hammock, his bowstring, and his fishing line are made from fiber of the tucum palm. The comb which he wears on his head is ingeniously constructed of the hard bark of a palm, and he makes his fishhooks of the spines of a palm and uses them to puncture his skin to make the peculiar markings of his tribe, that is, tattoos. His children are eating the agreeable red and yellow fruit of the pupunha, or peach palm, and from that of the acai palm he has prepared his favorite drink, which he offers you to taste. That carefully suspended gourd contains oil from which he's extracted from the fruit of another species of palm, and that long elastic plated cylinder used for squeezing dry the manioc pulp to make his bread is made of the bark of one of the singular climbing palms, which alone can resist for a considerable time the action of this poisonous juice. In each of these cases, wrote Wallace, the species is selected better adapted than the rest for their peculiar purpose to which it is applied, and often having several different uses for which no other plant can serve as well, so that some little idea may be formed of how important to the South American Indian must be these noble palm trees, which supply so many of his daily wants, giving you his house, his food, and his weapons. But let's talk about palms in the modern world. Palms remain important and relevant to the current day. And let's hear why. In addition to the purposes elucidated by Wallace, palm fruits are also used now as livestock feed, while the leaves and fibers are made into hats, mats, shoes, baskets, cordage, brooms, fire fans, roofs, walls, spears, bows, arrows, looms, graters, kitchen utensils, souvenirs for tourists, and for backpacks. And the huge leaves of one species are employed as sails atop small boats used by the indigenous Warao peoples along the lower Orinoco River in Venezuela. But it'd be a mistake to suggest the utility of palms is mostly limited to pre-industrial cultures. New and promising uses continue to be investigated and developed. For example, in Brazil, the starch from the stem of the widespread buriti palm has been successfully tested as a component in making gluten-free cookies and other baked goods. Acai palm fruit, so ubiquitous in Western supermarkets, shows promise for use in modern medicine as a tasty alternative to the ghastly oral contrast agents currently employed in magnetic resonance imaging, that is, MRI studies of the gastrointestinal tract. Acai's major importance as a food source to the peasant population in lower Amazonia, for which it serves as a staple known as acai na tigela, acai in a calabash, sometimes consumed more than twice a day, and serves as an important component of calories and edible oil. Acai is proved to be more fattening than milk due to its high lipid content, although it contains less calcium and protein. Given increasing global demand, plantations of acai palm are expanding. Like the peach palm, acai may one day be planted in Africa and Asia and take its place amongst the most nutritious and important of all the world's food crops.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please remember to subscribe and share. We appreciate your support for the protection of the cultural wisdom and biodiversity of the Amazon. In our next episode, Mark will dive into the past, present, and future of magic mushrooms and other medical fungi. Here's a quick preview.
Magic mushrooms, that is, hallucinogenic fungi, have played a major role in the evolution of human culture, human religion, and now in business and medicine as well. We're looking at billion-dollar valuations for the use of psilocybin and other hallucinogens, primarily derived from mushrooms, to revolutionize the way we treat so-called incurable diseases like PTSD, depression, and end-of-life anxiety. Mushrooms, according to many, may rule the world.